Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. If I'm not mistaken, I have totally forgotten to change the title of this town hall. Here we go. We are sitting at the town hall number 34. Insane. Numbers are increasing. I'm still a little bit stoked when it comes to the overall numbers of town halls we already had. So, yeah, well, what's up? What's going on? What's brewing? We do have a new version of XOS, and probably a couple of you already noticed that. So, I guess it's a good idea to talk a little bit about that and make sure that you get like a brief introduction in what has changed, what kind of new nice features are in there, and then we'll just go over a couple of usual news that we do have. And hopefully some of you guys also do have a couple of questions. I'm sorry if I'm just a little bit distracted here for a second, but I'll make sure that this does not happen the whole town hall. So first things first, yeah, we do have a new version, which is the version 2.7.0, which has been released yesterday with plenty of new features, with so much cool stuff in there. And it was late, it was delayed by a couple of days, but well, it is what it is. We don't really follow any sort of a timeline or timetable or whatever you want to call it. In general, we are planning to release a new version each month, and if you do have a couple of minor bug fixes or hot fixes or whatever you want to call them, then we do have irregular changes and fixes and uploads on this end. So we also try to introduce this new versioning, that we do have the second number of the versioned file being only changed for the monthly releases, and if you do have like hot fixes and stuff like this is the last number. But you should usually be aware of that. If you're not, now you are aware about that. I do see we are having plenty new people joining into here and being in the audience, which is awesome. For everybody who's new here, welcome to the Bitaxe Town Hall. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. These town halls are recorded. You also do have the option to raise your hand and come up on stage. So feel free to do that, but be aware that then your voice will be recorded. If you don't want to do that, you can always use the chat functionality of the town hall and just ask questions in there, because these town halls are usually for you, so that you do have the option to ask any sort of questions, and I'll try my best to answer them. And if you do have other people on the stage, they probably do the same. But well, let's quickly give you a brief overview of the new changes before we dive into any sorts of questions or anything else. So with the version 2.7.0, we have plenty new things in there. I do think one of the nicest things in there, at least that's my opinion, is that you have now the option to set up a screensaver for your display. I do love the Bitaxe screen, don't get me wrong on that, but having the option to turning it off and on again is really necessary. I do believe that. And this was introduced by TerraTech. If you're listening in here or listening to this later on, thank you again for doing that. I ran over all the changes that we had in one of my videos previously, but of course I want to just make sure that you guys get what are the major differences to the previous versions that we do had. And as I said, I think personally the screensaver is my most favorite new feature that we do have, because now you can have your Bitaxe right next on your desk when you're sleeping, or right next to your bed when you're sleeping, or wherever, I don't know. And you can just turn off the screen. That's so lovely. And if you do turn it on, it works. There's no like you need to restart it or anything else. It just works, which is really, really awesome. And I really love it to see. As well as you can always click the boot button to cycle through the screens. And if you do that while the screen is offline, it will come back online and it will show you the screen for a couple of seconds and then go back to sleep again, which is Really nice, and I love that. Another cool new feature, which is not the best, but it's an ideal feature, was the rework of the automatic fan control. We introduced the PID fan controller. I worked on that with PMax. He was really helpful, guiding me through a couple of things. So thanks to you for doing that. He also introduced this into the ESP miner version for all the NerdQX thingies as an experimental feature. So yeah, whatever kind of devices you're using or building, it is awesome to have this new fan controller in there. It is supposed to be better than the old fan control. It is better than the old fan control because now you do have like a set target temperature that you can align. Basically, you just give it a target temperature that you want to achieve, and then the fan tries to match this in terms of ramping up or ramping down in order to make sure that your AC chip stays in a specific range, which is a nice thing to do. We also had plenty of bug fixes, especially when it comes to the front end, and improvements in so many other things. So it's too much to go over all of them. But in general, we had 5 new contributors to this release, which were Kuko, Ves, Aaron, GG4, Circus, and Access Ray. I do try to always make sure when we do have town halls really close to release that I just name them out, because it is so awesome to see new contributors in there and making sure that this whole ecosystem, that what we are doing here is just growing, which is so awesome to see and to be there. I do think with the version 2.7.0, that's mostly it. I could go over more of these changes that we had in there, but I do think one of the nicest things of the town halls is to have you guys in here and being able to ask questions or anything else. So if you do have any questions, feel free to actually come up with them. Otherwise, I'll make sure to talk a little bit about other stuff and what's brewing in general, because there are always nice new things out there. And sometimes you just need to make sure that they are working or that you do talk to the people about them. So maybe I can start with one thing, which is the BAP, the so-called Bitaxe accessory port. I tried to work on this because we do have a really big issue on GitHub, which sort of lays out the design of how the BAP should work. It is basically a subscribe and send model where you do have the option to hook up any I2C or UART device to these ports, basically, and then you try to send over a command which tells the Bitaxe, hey, dude, I want to subscribe to, let's say, the hash rate. And then the Bitaxe recognizes this and sends over another port the response. Well, here's the hash rate. 5 seconds later, well, here's the new hash rate, and so on. So it's more of a subscribe and I do respond to you model, which should ideally come to life at some point. And one good thing is I was a little bit bored maybe the one or the other day, and I was trying to lay out a brief design of it. I haven't done a PR yet because I wasn't able to sufficiently bring it into a state where it does make sense. But I think we're getting close there, and especially the issue that we do have on GitHub was really helpful, because then you don't need to think about what you want to implement, but other people help you on, well, that's the guide, that's the kind of circumstances you should use or the requirements, and you just build around it. And I think it was like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I got the first message that was really well. And yesterday I was working again on it, and I was making sure that I do use another ESP, hooking it up with wires and making sure they're well connected. And I just sent over, well, send me the hash rate. And it did, every 5 seconds. I'm still thinking if 5 seconds is sufficient enough or if this should be lowered. I don't know. We'll see. There's probably plenty of room to discuss this if a PR is coming up onto that. But yeah, for now, this is one of the good news that is going on there. And Marshall, no, it's not named the Bitaxe Madman port, but it's a nice naming. But unfortunately, that's not the name for that. We do have a question from NI. I was wondering, should the target temperature be set a little higher than what you typically get from your Bitaxe? Well, first things first, I do saw this here. You use camel cases. It's not Bitaxe with a uppercase A. You use the lower case A, just Bitaxe, no camel cases. But to answer your question here, the target temperature that you want to use always depends on what you want to achieve. Let's say you prefer having low noise, then you should be in the range between 60 to 67 degrees C, which is kind of high, but still okay to operate in. If we do go to 70 and above that, we do get in this sort of danger zone, because at 75 C for the ASIC, the Bitaxe would just reboot into a overheat mode, which has been set from us because we were taking a look on the firmware and how Bitmain is actually treating their chips on their devices, and they do the same. So we just adapted onto that. So to answer this question, the target temperature can be chosen to whatever temperature you do like, but in general, I'd say you need to play a little bit with it. Having higher temps is not bad. You need to go away from the thinking the lower the temperature, the better. This probably does fall into the category of using some standard CPU or something like this, but we're talking here about hardware designs which are ASICs, and they do have a specific, how can I say this correct here? They do tend to have a target temperature in a specific range where they do operate the best. And this is for the ASICs that we have tested so far between 45 to 65 degrees Celsius. It's a huge range, but this is the range that you usually want to have. And I personally think anything between 55 to 65 is totally fine. And as Marshall pointed out, just set it to 69 and call it a day. Yeah, 69. Nice. All right, I do think this kind of answers the question there. Right now, I'm typically getting 67.5 C on my gamma. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's 67.5 C is totally fine. Just make sure that it is not too loud, or that the heatsink and the fan that you do have is still capable of cooling it more. If you're getting the 67.5 C because of insufficient cooling, then I would probably think about it again, because then you maybe need to change to another heatsink or to another fan to make sure that it can cool better. But if you on purpose decide to bring it to, you changed your answer. You said, okay, it's not 67, it's 57. Okay, that's totally fine. Totally fine, totally okay to operate in. Also, one thing that I want to quickly mention here is plenty of these guys, or plenty of you, if you're into this kind of thing, that are overclocking your Bitaxe devices. Some of you guys usually tend to this, what I tried to express previously. You don't need to make sure that your device is as cool as possible. Obviously, that's a nice thing to do, and I always think about these people that are overclocking and cooling with liquid nitrogen CPUs and stuff like this. We're not doing that kind of stuff here, and your ASIC chip will probably not work if you do that, because it needs a specific range of temperature to work. It has to do with the logic gates and plenty other things, but anything between 55 to 65, personal opinion from me, is totally fine. And I wanted to express one thing here. That is, people that are overclocking, they tend to have this urge or this need of making sure that all the temperatures are as low as possible. Fun fact, the temperature that you do need to have on your VRAC, on the buck converter, and plenty other things that this device is doing. So on the device on the back side, right above your coil, you do see there's this weird square thingy that is converting the 5 volts input voltage down to the 1.2 volts or whatever voltage you have set for your ASIC. This device does have a temperature rating of 120 C. And if you do read the data sheet, this thing is totally capable of running 24/7 on 100 degrees Celsius. So It is probably not nice. I wouldn't do that, but just saying it's in the datasheet. So you could technically operate this at ludicrous numbers. I'm not saying you should do that. We're probably not going into the section of having overclocking people, but overheating people in here. So maybe we need an overheating channel as well. That will be funny. Developer algo is writing the best max OP temperature for the gamma is below 70 C for ASIC and REVEC below 100 C. Anything above that you share are impacted. Yeah, totally correct. What's also interesting with that, if temperature increases of these chips, especially the ASIC chip, then at some point it behaves weird. So either you do have shares that are inconsistent, or you do have hash rate drops and other things. So these are just some rough estimates of what you should expect as you would expect your body to behave. Your body, if you're running 24/7 on track, at some point you will just die probably, but that's not the point. The point is that at a certain temperature, it becomes harder and harder for you to keep up running. It's the same for the ASIC, but it does have a different range on where it can operate on. So yeah. Meitu, you just went into the kitchen. All right. I was talking about the regulator, the buck converter. Yeah. All right. Let's see. As I said, guys, if you do have any questions or if you want to come up on stage and talk to me, but you need to be aware that this town hall has been recorded and will be uploaded later on, make sure to think about that. But if you want to ask questions with your voice, you can always make sure to raise your hand. I'll bring you up on the stage. Otherwise, just use the chat. One thing that I want to talk about here as well is a little bit different than what we've talked so far about. Is we do have the website which is called osmu.xyz, which is our more or less official website for this community, because, well, we are not a company, we are not an NGO or anything else. We are just some nerds on a Discord server that happens to run really big so far, and it's insane. I'm taking a look on the numbers of members that we do have. We have 8,463 members. This is really insane. But what I wanted to express here is I've read this multiple times now, that a couple of people think that the transparency that we do share is well, not on par. I mean, one thing that I need to say here is it's always easy to point out to people that are not willing to take a look into the stuff or read the fucking manual. There is this saying of read the fucking manual, and this is always the case. If you're pointing your finger to anybody else, make sure that you read the fucking manual before you do that. We do have a website. It's called osmu.xyz. You get plenty of information on this, about this community, what our goal is, what we're trying to do with this. And especially also, we do have a section which is called transparency, where we do give you a brief overview of what is happening with all of the funds that we're receiving through the donations. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best to keep this up to date and make sure that it is tracking on all the things that we are supporting. For example, we have granted projects, which is always a nice thing. So if you do have, for example, an idea for a new miner or a new style or a firmware or anything else, you can always make sure to reach out to one of the admins of Open Source Miners United and just forward the proposal for your idea. Or maybe you're already working on something and say, well, I just need ASICs, but they are so expensive. Can you guys help me with that? Yes, we can do that, and we are happily willing to do that. The best example for that is the Eco Miner. Totally nice design, but he said, well, I can't afford all these ASIC chips. It's a little bit too expensive for me. And we said, no problem. Yeah, here we go. That's the reason why we do have this donation section. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm pointing this out. What else? What else? We do have the bitaxe.org website. You probably do know that. If you want to take a look on that, that's totally fine. There are links to all the Bitaxe projects, especially all the different models that we do have, as well as a couple of other useful links. One of the weirdest things that we do have with the Bitaxe site so far is the page of legit sellers, resellers, whatever. It's a little bit tough, and Scott always said this, and this whole thing will probably never change because it is how it is, that any reseller can basically apply to become a legit reseller, and there are so easy steps to fulfill this and to become a legit reseller. The thing about it, it sounds more than what it is, because there's no way that Scott should or could have the time to make sure that everything is working aligned to the rules or anything else. The only reason why this exists is that we try our best to prevent scammers from entering the market. It is still happening. There are still so many websites out there that are trying to scam you or anything else. I just wanted to point out that always make sure that you do take a look on multiple pages, because sometimes you get a better deal on another web page. It is what it is. That's how the market works. But make sure that you think about your purchase twice, especially in the internet. It is full of scammers and it's not stopping. I probably have seen 5 websites last week where people stayed with like a big plate. I'm a legit reseller, and well, you're not even on the list. What the fuck are you doing? I don't know. It's getting weird here now that we're getting bigger and bigger, but yeah, well, that's what is happening. I do see we have more people joining into the audience as well. For you, I want to make sure if you do have any questions, make sure to ask them. These town halls, these news channel town hall thingies are happening bi-weekly, every 2 weeks on Saturday. I'll try my best to be here and make sure to update you guys on and to answer your questions as good as possible. Let's see. Madness is threading. Any sellers should have it on the backside of the box. Read the manual QR code here. Beware by turning on your Bitaxe. You agree that this is an experimental desk that can fry any number of reasons. Yeah, that is the thing. Like, I'm always wondering. It is not that complicated. I do remember Solo Satoshi, for example, they were doing that. They reached out to me and were like, hey, one clue, you do these YouTube videos. Can you do a specific video for us? And we put it in a QR code into our box. And I was like, well, yeah, sure, of course I can do that. And they did it. I don't know if they still do it because I'm not from the US, but they did it for a long period of time. And that's the thing. It's not so fucking hard because there are videos out there. We even have the osmu.wiki page. So if people don't want to watch videos or are afraid of a youngster like me that is telling them some stuff on the internet, and you should never trust anybody on the internet, you can go over to the osmu.wiki page and read it there. And if you still don't trust that, well, then just faffle around, purchase one thing and try it out on your own. Yeah, this is really a tough thing that some of these resellers are just so weird. The biggest thing that is bugging me, or not really bugging me, but what is annoying, and don't get me wrong, I don't generally say that people suck, but sometimes it really is the case. There are plenty of these resellers as well out there that are tending to just sell these devices, and whenever a customer is reaching out to them, they just tell them, well, here's a Discord server, go on there and talk to the developers. Yeah, I don't know about you, but this feels a little bit weird. Marshall, thank you. I'm always your favorite scammer. It is my pleasure. Big youngster, big scam. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's not even support outsourcing. It's a funny thing because why I'm sometimes just a little bit too honest with the people, because I do think like, well, I'm selling you a product, so now I need to make sure that I'm doing it right. And if you don't understand it, I want to educate you. it sucks, and especially if you do have a customer. And I'm just thinking into the position. I'm not doing any service on this end, so I'm sorry if you do have any questions. I'm not really doing that, but I'm just thinking about it. If you do have a customer and he just doesn't get it, well, you sold him the device. You need to take the action and tell him how it works. Sending him over to these open source developers that are not even earning a buck because you are just a reseller that is not supporting this project, well, yeah, that happens a lot. But I'm not complaining. It's totally right. It's okay. It is what is happening, and we're trying to be the best and the most open source community that we can be with educating the people. Of course, we do have sometimes these 5 minutes where we are actually raging because it is sometimes so mind-boggling that people are into this. But the only thing you can actually reach out to these people, and especially to new people that are coming into the space and are just enjoying this open source scene, you need to educate them. And that is the best that we can do here, which is hopefully what we are achieving here. I do see... You better not check AliExpress, Alibaba, and Fanny Young. There's plethora of ultimate legit XXL premium sellers there. Oh my goodness, yeah, I do bet. I don't even know what Fanny Young is. Is this actually an online website where you can purchase stuff? I do know AliExpress and Alibaba, but this Fan Young, I've never heard that. But, well... It's easy for them to hastily assemble something with issues and point customers here to go get it fixed. They can always pretend to be just resellers and taint the Bitaxe as a brand because many average customers do not really get the open source part. Yeah, that's the interesting part about it. This whole open source thing that we're trying to do here, it is so splitting the community or the people that are getting into it. I'd say 50% don't give a fuck and 50% care about it, which is quite interesting. Scott said it once, we are not using a... Ben, can you quickly help me out? What is it? With this license, we're not trying to restrict the people. We're trying to make sure that they are as open as possible. Oh my goodness, he was writing. He was saying something good and copy left. Yeah, thank you. So with this license, we're not trying to make sure that this is a copyright that we do have. No, for fuck's sake, just read the damn license. It tells you do whatever you want with it, change it, modify it. But as soon as you do try to manufacture and sell this, you do have the obligation to open source it because the overall community needs to have a better understanding of what's happening there and needs to get this knowledge. So we're not trying to write, it is not a copyright, it's a copyleft. And that's the thing that is so interesting to me, that I do see so many people that are just like, well, it's an open source project. I can do whatever I want with it. Fuck you. Yes, to a certain extent, you can do what you want with it. But we are not fighting to restrict you. We are fighting that everybody who's trying to change anything or improve, especially anything on these devices, on these devices, we're trying to fight that this gets open sourced as well, because it needs to. The overall community needs to benefit off of it, not just two people. That's my 2 cents on it. And Scott said it the last time, or 2 or 4 weeks ago he said it, and that's totally what I'm aligned with as well. It's like not a copyright, it's a copyleft. And anyway, I don't want to go into this rabbit hole too much. But yeah, we need a way to minimize scammers as legit resellers. We know how who are the legit resellers in the market. Yeah, it is. PMax, good question. He was asking, where's the hardware repo for the Cyber 8 or the Cyber 8S? So. I don't know if Tiny Chip Hub is listening to this town hall. Probably not. Maybe they're listening to this later on. So they sent me the Cyber 8S. I was posting a picture of this on X. And to be honest, looking at it, it's a nice thing. But I immediately noticed two things. First of all, it does use a standard server grade heatsink with a server grade fan. So if you never experience any server next to you, well, try to sleep next to it. It's fucking loud, but it's okay. This fan is not too bad. I put it down or ramped it down to like 65-70%, which is okay. I don't have any decibel meters with me, but taking a look on the device, I need to make sure to do a second video about this as well. It is a modification of the Hex, and they did the same with the Supra Hex. They created the Supra Hex and they open sourced it, but with the Cyber 8S, I don't know, like it is using 8 of the 1368 chips, so the Super chip. It is technically also a Supra Oct Supra, whatever. I'm just trying to point out here that the design they do have here and that they sent over to me is based on the Hex. I'm not... I told them like multiple times, hey guys, make sure to open source it. They answered all the other questions that I had, but they ignored this specific one. I don't know. I do have a video to review the device. It's already recorded. I'm thinking about publishing it, but until they do tell me, well, no, sorry, we're not open sourcing it, or, well, we are open sourcing it, I haven't decided if I should upload the video or not, because sure, I want to review it. I want to make sure that people that are getting into these kind of expensive devices, seeing what they do get, but at the same point, I don't know. Tiny Chip Hub, open source the design. Come on, don't be a bitch. Also, the funniest part about this is it took me 3 days to get this thing working, because they missed to include the correct washers, and the heatsink they do use has too much space between the screws and the thingies that are holding these screws. I don't know how to otherwise express what these are. And the washers were missing. And they were like, yeah, I just sent them over to them. I was like, dude, what's that? It's wiggling around. The ASICs are just floating. Yeah. Took me a couple of days, but good thing is, if you do have a 3D printer, you can always print yourself washers. They are not the best, but they work. And I did this. Took me 3 days because I don't have much time, especially if you do have a kid at home that is not even a year old. This thing takes time. Let's see. PRGTK was writing, the biggest problem to make the open source world bigger is mostly because people who are interested in starting mining are mostly getting products only out of Asia or America. The trust is always higher when you have shipping out of your home country, where you don't have to wait forever for your order, and when something happens, people without deep technical knowledge, you have to rely on somebody. But with these Asian products, you're left alone, and this is a big problem, that not more people are interested in those products in this mining world and decentralization. Well, to be honest, that's not even bad, because that's what we are incentivizing here with this whole scene. Like, we do give out all the informations, we have all the repositories, and if people or manufacturers, let's say in Bulgaria, in Germany, in Spain, in California, in Idaho, or wherever, on any planet, somewhere on this planet Earth, are trying to produce them, then it's totally fine. Just do it. That's what we're trying to incentivize. And I do think this is also benefiting this whole community, that we do have this option, that everybody can produce them. And you're totally right about the fact, if you do like to purchase a product in your home country, you can do this, as long as somebody is producing Bitaxes over in your country, which is getting more and more popular. and you're also right. I think if there would be more trust, there are more people investing into this product. Maybe. I mean, we created probably trust by finding 2 blocks so far. The next big thing I'm always referring to is as soon as Ben will basically have the biggest party, when Public Pool will find its first block. Technically, it has found its first block already, but on a self-hosted node, not on Public Pool. Public Pool hosted. I mean, it's even a bigger party for the self-hosted one, I'd say, but I just want to see the block on Public Pool. I just want to see that. Matthew, do I understand that right? All the Bitaxe scammers from Asia are basically stolen design or a copy. Yes or no? The straight answer to that is, if you do produce any Bitaxe, let it be the Bitaxe Max, the Bitaxe Ultra, the Super, the Gamma, the Hex Super, any of them. You manufacture them as they are in the repository. You can do whatever you want with them. The only thing where it comes to stolen design is you do modify the board, you improve something, and you don't open source it. Then you have done things against the copyleft license that we do have. Oh my goodness, yeah, PMax. PMax just said like the Chinese nerdnos. It's a funny thing. Like Ben, PMax, and I, we were working on the nerdnos, and it is a nice little thing. You can boost your hash rate with it, yada yada. Don't want to go too deep into detail, but like we were just finishing the designs, and I think 3 weeks later, there was not even anything anywhere. They modified it and called it Nerdnos 1, but obviously not open source. But that's not bad, because the Nerdnos is under the MIT license for a reason. Because the idea of the Nerdnos is just to make sure that more and more people are getting into an upgrade for their nerd miner that they do have. And therefore, there was this thinking about, well, what kind of license should we do? And we just stick to the MIT license. So it is what it is. It's not bad. And the MIT license tells you, do whatever you want with it. We don't even care if you change anything. So it's still funny. And PMax, I and somebody else had like a interesting conversation in the Nerdnos channel. Well, that's the kind of thing that I'm referring to, is people purchase things from China from an untrusted party that PRGTK was also referring to, that trust is an issue. And then you don't get any support. And the best part was his reseller was telling him, well, if you need support, just go to Bitaxe. And I was like, who's Bitaxe? Yeah, well, this community. Oh, nice. So they are actually sending you directly over into this Discord because they're not handling you. We're going in circles here. I don't want to do that. We want to talk about news and cool stuff. So guys, if you do have any questions, just get them out here. We have plenty of people in here that are capable of explaining you basically anything. When it comes to mining and Bitaxe, don't ask anything else. I mean, you could, but I'm not sure if you're willing to receive the answer to that. Okay, I see. So the plans etc are somewhere online. Can someone post a link? Matsu, I don't actually get the question. Basically, all the designs that Bitaxe does have are on our official GitHub repository. If you've never used GitHub, just go over to the page github.com. And if you want to go into our specific repository, it's under github.com/bitaxeorg. There you find all the repositories that we do have that are public. We also do have a couple of private repositories. And some of you are now wiggling or standing up and telling, hey, that's not all right. Why do you have private repositories? Well, guys, uh, the funniest part why we do have them is Scott was working on the Gamma. The Gamma was not 100% working. There were flaws in the design. And guess what? People are already producing them, selling them, and stuff like this. And customers were flooding in like, well, it's not working. What's going on? Why is this design shit? It doesn't matter. Like, people are copying stuff all over the place. They don't even look at it. And that's the hilarious part about it. Scott is such a bright-minded person, and he knows so much stuff. And we also have so many other more bright-minded people in this space. We try to be the best of us that we can. But how stupid do you need to be to just copy and paste something that is work in progress and think you can sell that? I'm impressed how stupid you need to be to do that. Anyway. All right. Merlin is asking if there's any new tea on the next chip in focus. So when it comes to Bitmain chips, so far there are no new known ones. The only changes that we do have is the versioning of the chips. The BM1370 does have the BC, the PA, and Ben, what other model have you seen so far? I only know about the BC and the PA. Maybe, I don't know if there is an AG model of it already, but the batching of these chips is getting better and better over time. So on this chip, there's only a little bit of improvement on the manufacturing side of Bitmain. When it comes to any other new chips, there are a couple of works of trying to use other ASIC manufacturers. I just ordered one of these seal miners, these BitDeer thingies yesterday, because I want to actually make sure that we do the same with this one, that we reverse engineer it, or at least figure out how the communication with this works. I don't know. There are no big rumors around anything new, apart from the GT, which does feature 2 of the BM1370 chips. Anything else, like what's about the block chip? I just read an article yesterday about block that it was in Handelsblatt. It's a German article thingy. I just read about them there because in this article they stated that they are releasing their own ASIC chip later this year. Well, it's more of a to be continued than anything specific. Yeah, Vero Knox, you were asking, isn't there someone making an open source ASIC chip? Yeah, well, Block is trying to do that. But the thing with Block is they can share their schematics, they can share their pinout, but what they cannot share is the actual process. So people are already questioning, is this open source or not? It is the best that we can do so far, because Block is not the issue. The issue is TSMC or ASML. These are the companies that are manufacturing with lithography chips onto a silicon wafer, and this process is not allowed to be shared. Otherwise, China would probably do this in 2 weeks and copycat everything. So that's the reason why it's not allowed to share this stuff. So the only thing that they actually can share are these things they are allowed to, which is more than what we have so far. And you can literally say, well, all we did is open source because we are allowed to share what we did. But if our work builds on top of specific design parameters of ASML or TSMC, we're not allowed to share them. Well, then we can't share them, but we are still technically open source because we shared what we do have, which is a huge milestone in this scene in general, because no other ASIC manufacturer has done this so far. And I do have high hopes that they actually fulfill that and do that, and that it is not just a marketing gag. But until they do release the chip and all the paperwork, we don't know. It is still just speculation, and you need to be aware about that. A developer Algo is writing, all designs should be private until we are ready to make a public open source release. Otherwise, we are going to continue to have developers being frustrated by shady resellers who just copy the designs and start producing without knowing anything about the designs. Then we have to spend time responding to those issues. Yeah, well, I'm 100% aligned with you on this one. And so far, we are doing good. The Bitaxe GT repository is already public, but let me see. Let me take a look on it. Where is it? Yeah, the Bitaxe GT is already public, but it states clearly that this is still an untested prototype. Don't build this expecting it to work at all. So hopefully people are reading at least that. I don't know. We'll see. It's yeah, it takes time, and especially like on the Bitaxe GT, there was Scott McFighter and Ben working on them, so it takes time to do stuff. These people have other things to do. Also, I cannot point this out often enough. It's really awesome to have you guys here in the audience. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat if you are not willing to come up on stage, because these town halls are recorded. If you're willing to come up on stage, make sure to raise your hand and I'll bring you up onto the stage. Other than that, for everybody who's listening to this later on, make sure to check out our community. You can find it under discord.gg/OSMU. If you want to know a little bit more about us, osmu.xyz is your place to go. And if you're crazy enough to get and purchase a device, check out bitaxe.org/buy. And even if you don't choose any of these resellers on this list, make sure to double check different prices, because sometimes you can get a better deal somewhere else. Decentralized Mind is asking, are we ready for the NerdNose challenge? So I need to explain this. Yes, we are, my friend, we are. I sorted out all the parts. I need to send them over. I'll probably do that tomorrow or in 1 or 2 days. So I'm watching a couple of these streams that Decentralized Mind is doing. And if you don't know him, make sure that if you use X, you check him out over there, because he's doing live streams while he's assembling Bitaxes by hand, which is nice to look at. I've been on the same side, on the same dark side early on when I started with all this. Fast forward almost 2 years later, here we are. I challenged him. I told him, well, dude, let's do a weird challenge. We want to do a live stream where he and I are assembling a NerdNose, and whoever finishes the board first is, I don't know, winning something. We haven't decided on that, but that's the goal, that we do a live stream where we try to compete to each other and see who's going to be quicker in assembling a NerdNose. Especially a NerdNose doesn't have that many parts on it. It's less than 50 parts that you need to assemble, and it's all on one side, so it's not even dual-sided PCB. Components are just on the top part of it. It's super easy. I'm really stoked for that, but we need to be careful with the date and the timing, especially. Luckily, we both are living under the same time zone, but I need to make sure that I do have enough room and my kid is not screaming and yada yada yada. Anyway, well, what else is going on? While I do see you in here, PMax, I probably need to ask you a couple of things or talk to you about your web flasher. If you didn't know that, guys, I wanted to point this out because this is awesome. PMax is the one who's running the firmware for all these NerdQX devices, NerdX, whatsoever. So he's building the firmware for it. And he modified the web flasher for the NerdX devices that it is automatically pulling the pre-built binaries from GitHub, running a checksum against them, so that there is no middleman basically possible in the web flasher for the NerdQX devices. And this feature is so awesome. I still need to look into that. And I just wanted to highlight this here because I do love what you did there. it is just awesome. And I just hadn't had time to actually look into it a little bit more deeply and make sure to implement this into the web flasher for all the Bitaxe devices as well, because yeah, stuff takes time. I'm running out of time. It's insane. Okay, PRGTK is asking, is there something coming up nobody knows about yet? Something groundbreaking? Of course, there's always something groundbreaking. I mean, well, we all are gonna go closed source. We will do a rug pull, and what else? Let me think about it. No, at the moment there's not really anything. This community is just thriving. It is getting better and better. We're getting bigger and bigger. I do see more and more people coming into this, and all these different sections are receiving more and more love, which is really making me happy, because it's just fantastic. This is what we want. We want people be nerdy, faff around, and make sure that the community is growing and everybody's benefiting off of it. Closed source is anti-ethical in our opinion, and that's why we do all of this as open source as possible. Oh my goodness, I was just reading what PMax was writing in the chat. So remember 2 minutes ago I talked about his web flasher, and he said problem is the extra SHA-256 checksum, that there are some course problems with trying to download binaries directly from GitHub, which is not allowed. GitHub. So what it actually does is it uses a course proxy as a middleman to be sure it doesn't tamper with the binaries. There's an extra SHA-256 checksum in the release body on GitHub. Oof, yeah. That's a little bit unfortunate, but it's understandable. And well, I'm wondering, where do you run this course proxy? Anyway, unless you do guys have any more questions, I'm thinking about closing this, and maybe you guys are up for a little bit of discussion in the general chat, which is obviously not recorded unless anybody else records it, but I doubt. Yeah, well, it was good talking to you and updating you a little bit on the news in general. There are a couple of issues still in general on our Bitaxe software, as always. We're currently in a nice process of creating something that is called the hash command, which is new. So maybe this does fall under the new category. The idea with that is to create an Electrum-based system program, whatever you want to call it, that you can run on all your devices. And you can control your entire fleet with it, your Bitaxe fleet. The idea for creating this project, instead of building more and more into the ESP miner firmware, should be obvious. This little microcontroller is a nice thing to play with, and you can utilize plenty of ASIC chips with it, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to overload it. And even though we do have plenty of room left on it, technically speaking, we're getting into a couple of limits in terms of what do we actually want to put in there. For example, we do have a pull request for InfluxDB. Do we actually want to put this into it? Does it make sense? Or I don't know, a new design change for an overclocking people, like where you can press a button and now your entire web UI changes over to a new one, and now it's blinking and stuff like this, and you can overclock your device even easier. Does that make sense? Probably to a couple of people, but the best thing is to just move this out of the microcontroller into something that is actually capable of doing all of that. And one of the biggest things that is making trouble is Swarm. Don't get me wrong, this functionality is awesome. Swarm is a nice feature and plenty of people use it. I myself as well, obviously. But we removed it once. We implemented it back again, or we had the discussion to remove it, and then we fixed it because nobody can know everything. So we actually rely on other open source developers, and if there's nobody willing to work on stuff, well, you either kick it out if it is not working, or you try to fix it in one way or the other. So hash command is basically the idea of creating a program that you can run on your local PC and control your entire fleet of Bitaxes from this software. And we could put into that whatever we want, because it's not running on a microcontroller, it's running on your PC or on a Raspberry Pi or on a server or on whatever. So if you don't know about this project and you want to check it out, or even better, if you want to contribute to it, make sure to go over to github.com/bitaxorg/hash-command, which is a nice Electron application. Created by Ben. So thanks for doing that. And well, I'm still waiting for Chilling Bee to finish typing. Type quicker, buddy. I'm a little bit mean here, I'm sorry. In case if the swarm, is it possible to implement to update all listed Bitaxes at once? Yes, it is totally possible to do that. And I've seen that Mars Mensch, I don't know if I think that's his name on X, Mars Mensch, something like that, that he created with somebody else a nice looking UI for exactly doing that. But well, technically, PMax already had this, and it is available on his GitHub repository. PMax, if you want, you can post the link in the Townhall chat as well. It is CLI based, so, well, yeah, it is there. It's not beautiful, but it's working. And it should also work with the Bitaxe, so therefore, it is possible to update all of the devices at once. I usually don't do that because I'm just developing too much on them. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 3 different ones. I have 8 big Bitaxes. 5 of them are Gammas, and the other 3 are Max and Ultra and a Supra. And I try to run different firmwares on them to make sure that all the stuff that we are doing and working on is actually working. So I'm not updating them all at once, but sure, if you do have, I don't know, 128 Bitaxes at home and you want to update all of them, it's a pain to do that manually. So you can either use the script by PMax or use this program that has been provided by Mars Mensch. I don't know the name of it. I haven't tried it. Maybe I should. But it's looking promising, both of them, especially the CLI tool, because I do love CLI stuff. But yeah. I do think for today, that's more or less it. I do thank everybody for tuning into this one. And I do hope to see you back in 2 weeks. Till then, keep hashing and stay humble. Your One Clue. Peace out.